As a continuation of the previous video where I talked about when to go to therapy, I want to talk today about how to choose a good therapist or what makes a good therapist. I have tried many different therapists myself before I found the best one ever on earth for me. And then I have also talked to a lot of my colleagues. I have talked to a lot of my friends who have gone to therapy or are going to therapy and what makes a good therapist for them. And I have also worked as colleagues, like on supervisions and on different sorts of practice exercises with different therapists who are my colleagues. So I think I have a lot of experience with all sorts of different people, and I can share it in order to make maybe life a little bit easier for you if you are looking for a therapist. I need to say that I will be using the term therapist like in the other video as an umbrella term, so it means any sort of facilitator. It might be a mentor, a coach, counselor. I just say therapist because it's easier, and it's all sort of like this helping professions, the facilitators. So if I say therapist, you can easily substitute any of the above. So let's part from the idea that like any person that we are talking about has had some sort of formal education. To be honest, I have been with therapists who have lots of education, lots of courses done, lots of certifications, all sorts of different awards, and still they broke the ethics, or they just were not able to help, or they did some really kind of like atrocious things for a therapist, like telling secrets that I told during the session to other people who had no business knowing and stuff like that. So honestly, like, having education doesn't really guarantee you being a good therapist, but we'll part from the idea that the person that you are going to has an education to show up for. That being out of the way, now I will say that for me personally, and for many of the professionals that I have talked with, not with just people, who are clients, but with like psychologists or therapists who work as therapists and who work with other therapists. And the most important thing that everyone says is that you need to have lots of hours of personal therapy, and not just hours, but lots of results of your personal therapy to show up for. Why is personal therapy so important? Well, first of all, you need to work through a lot of issues before you start treating other people. This is why in many countries it is obligatory to show an extensive amount of hours of personal therapy before you are led to treat with patients, because you need to have worked through many of your issues before you can help other people. Otherwise, you're just going to be projecting all over the place. You need to be able to identify your own emotions, and unfortunately we are not taught that from when we're children, so most of us are taught that in therapy. And you need to know how to identify when you are projecting, or when you are taking the emotions of your client as your own. And you need to be able to control that and to be able to deal with that in order not to make the situation of your client worse because you cannot deal with your own stuff. And I have been on the receiving side of a person who was a client, and the other person was kind of projecting their own stuff onto me, and it was really not helpful, even though they maybe otherwise were a good specialist. Also, I know that many therapists who maybe have not been in a lot of personal therapy and who don't have that much experience are focusing mainly on trying to show you that they know what they're doing, and they're not really helping you. They're just trying to prove that they are worthy enough. And this is also something that you need to work in therapy so you can be helpful to the other person. This is sort of obvious, but setting this aside, we also need to know how the process works on the inside. I always use the metaphor of dance. So you don't want to ask a person who has never learned how to dance but has read all the books on how to dance to teach you how to dance, because they would not know. I mean, they know the theory, but they don't know how to do that actually, because they've never done it in physical world. And the same with therapy. So when you know how to overcome certain traumas or certain things from your childhood, or how to deal with certain things, you can read all the books, but it's necessary to have walked this walk. And I actually always wanted to study psychology. Like since I was 12, probably 13, I knew that I wanted to be a therapist. And my life went some other direction at some point. So I had to study something else first. And I am now actually really grateful that I did, because it gave me lots of time to do my own work and to have had more than 1,000 now hours of personal therapy. And by the time I started practicing, it was like several hundred hours. And it was indispensable. Like I already knew how that worked even before I was like allowed to do that actually. And a lot of the people who I studied with had no idea, and it shows. Like the person who goes to therapy and a person who has never been in therapy, like you can tell by how they talk about their emotions, about their like feelings and relationships, their ability to have a dialogue. Yeah, so it is really, really, really important. How do you know if your therapist has been to therapy? As I said, in most countries, it's a requirement. So you have to have at least like 100 or 50 or whatever, like it depends really on your occupation and on the country. But you can ask them directly. You can ask like, how many hours of personal therapy do you have? Some people like put it on their website. For example, I have it listed on my website. Something that I forgot to mention is that we need to be like people who are working with other people. We need to be constantly improving ourselves, because we can only take our clients as far as we have come ourselves. So it's in our own interest to be able to improve as people, because then we can help our clients with like a larger amount of things to heal from. Yeah, so another point is also pretty obvious, and it's hours of experience or years of experience, which is not equal, because some people have 7 years of experience, but they have like one client a month. So they will have in total, like I cannot count, but like a couple hundred hours. Or you can have a person who has like 3 years of experience, but they have 20 clients per week, and it is a completely other story. So I would say that if I have worked with therapists who were not that experienced, but they were still really good. And I have worked with therapists who were very experienced and very studied, and they were not so good. So this is also not like a telltale sign, but it is important if you can ask them about that as well. It can be helpful. Although, as I said, like if it's above 2 years, probably like after that, it doesn't make a huge difference. I also want to say that it is very important that your therapist is compatible with you personally, because they can be the absolute best specialists in their field, and then it just doesn't click. This is why we all have chemistry calls for like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to get to know a person, to maybe hear the voice of each other and the manner of expressing ourselves, how we look, and so on, because we might have subconscious reactions to people that we don't even know where they're coming from, and they can influence into our relationship with that person. And just in general, like there is chemistry between people, and there is chemistry between friends and partners, and also between like a therapist and a patient. There is also some sort of chemistry, and it has to click. And this is probably the most important for you, because if you don't have respect, or if you don't like your therapist, it will be difficult for you to trust them, and it will be difficult for them to help you. So if you have the possibility to try out several different people, you can choose the ones that maybe like you like the description, or you follow on social media, or however like you make the decision. The most important thing is that you feel trust, is that you feel like you can tell this person anything and they don't judge you. It's feeling that you can tell them things and you know that they will not gonna break the ethics, and they're not gonna go and like tell other people about that. It's knowing that you can be totally yourself and you will be accepted, and feeling better in general. Not after every session you will feel better, because sometimes you will feel worse after therapy, especially in the beginning, but because you're gonna be talking about like painful stuff that maybe you had hidden in your subconscious. But in general, like if you have a feeling of being safe and sound with this person, it's already a good beginning. It is also fine. I know people who have difficulty like leaving their therapist of many years, because maybe they have reached like a point where they need something else. There are many different sorts of therapy. And actually, what I wanted to say is that there are so many different types, like cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoanalysis, emotional focus therapy, to name a few. And it's good when a person has training in at least like three, four of them, and that they combine the methods, because there is so many different approaches, and there none of them are complete. So there are specific things that serve a specific purpose, and none of them is enough, in my opinion, on their own to heal like any thing that is presented. So you as a person are very complex, and for example, elements of psychoanalysis can help you dive into your subconscious and understand like where the problem that you're dealing with is coming from. But then you would need like elements of cognitive behavioral therapy in order to change your pattern of thinking, and you would need maybe like system therapy to understand how your family dynamic works and so on. So it's good to have a therapist that can do at least in part like several of these methods. And it's also fine to want to change or pursue another therapist if you feel like there's like a specific issue that you are not being able to tackle but this specific person, or maybe you go to therapy but for like some particular thing in your life you need a coach. And usually if your therapist is not insane, they will even direct you to a person that they maybe know, because like we have professional collaborations, we have lots of friends or colleagues that we know that work in different problems and in different methods, and we can drive you to them. So don't be afraid to express your feelings to your therapist about like, I don't like where this is going, or I feel maybe this method would be better for me. And it's even possible that they offer to drive you to another specialist, and it's totally fine. Okay, I think that I have talked enough. Please let me know if you have had an experience with a therapist that was really great or not so great, or what do you think when you choose a specialist? How do you make the decision of whom to work with? And I will see you in another video. Thanks for watching until here. Take care and bye-bye.